All right. Mic check. I'm good. So I'm Max Ceron. CWB Association Welding podcast. Today we have a really cool guest. Welding podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Good day and welcome back to another episode of the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron and I'm here with Melissa Phelan. I believe I said that right. I hope I said that right. Melissa, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
Good. Did I say your name properly there?
You didn't, but it's okay.
Okay, so how do you say it?
You're failing. You're
Phelan.
failing at saying my name.
All right, so Melissa Phelan. All
Yes,
right, I got it.
It's all good.
So Melissa's here from Kingston, Ontario, to talk to us about her journey in the life of a welder, a female welder coming up, and kind of her experiences, and also some of the things that she's been working on the side in her life with as an advocate for women welders and women in the trades, which I'm as you've heard probably on the show lots, is something that we bring a lot of onto the show to try to help support and be an ally to all the people out there that are trying to make it in this world, which can be tough. So Melissa, let's hear a little bit about yourself here. So you're in Kingston, Ontario. Are you born and bred there, or where did you come from?
Yeah, I was born and raised here. I moved to a bigger city a couple hours away, Toronto, which is basically where all of the big companies are, like GM, all the big automotive companies, all the big welding companies, all the big automotive production companies. So I moved out there, and then I came back here 3 years ago to start taking care of my family again. My father got ill, so I had to return home, and I've been here for the last 3.5 years.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you were in Kingston growing up. Did you get into welding before you moved away, or lead us through the process? Did you figure this out in high school, or did you know when you were, little 6-year-old Melissa being like, I want to be a welder, or how did that work out?
No. Yeah, I definitely didn't think I was going to be a welder. When I was growing up, I was struggling as a teenager, working dead-end jobs, not really knowing what direction I wanted to take in life. I had lots of people telling me what I should do. I had, a lot of my girlfriends got into nursing and healthcare, and my mother was pushing me to get into that a lot. I'm really squeamish when it comes to that kind of stuff, so I knew that wasn't for me. I knew it. What really got me interested in welding was after my teenage years. I bought my first car when I didn't drive until I was about 20, I think. I got my license, and I also waited because I had to wait. I had to drop out of high school because I got kicked out of my house. I was a terrible teenager, so it was that kind of story. So I didn't start until later in life getting my crap together and figuring out what to do. But it wasn't until I bought my first car that it was a 1996 Honda Civic hatchback, and I realized that the whole floor needed to be replaced. So I bought myself a little welder from the local Canadian Tire here. It was on sale, and I was like, yeah, it's a great deal for a welder. I had no idea. It was a great deal, but at the time I didn't know. Just convincing everyone, yeah, it's a great deal, $600 for this little MIG welder. And I used that, and I taught myself from YouTube videos, just people that were kind of known to me. There's a couple, weld.com and a couple well-known YouTube channels out there that were pretty informative for me, just to get me started. I didn't know much about it. I was welding without gas. I was using flux core wire to do about half of my floor. And then I realized, I heard from somebody, my buddy, I think at high school, told me, well, you can use gas with it, and it actually melts in like butter. So I tried that, and it just evolved from there. You're just learning and learning every day. And I fell in love with it.
Yeah, and that's super interesting because I get a kick when I hear people say that they, didn't know what they were doing in life and then didn't get into it later. And then you fast forward to when you're 30, 40 years old and you look back and you're like, man, I was still young.
Oh
Like you
yeah,
like I mean, you got lots of time to figure out what's going on. You feel
yeah,
like you're in a big rush when you're a teenager in your early 20s, like, oh my God, I gotta get my crap together and I gotta figure out life. And then it just doesn't play out like that for some people. Like some people come, like you look at someone and they got all this stuff. They got a house and a car and a marriage, and but then you got to take a step back and you got to look. They come like, do they come from money? Do they have a lot of support? Some of
yep,
us don't have that, right? Some of us
yep.
are out there slinging it the hard way, and it takes longer.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know, it's usually like every person learns different for themselves, right? But
Mhm.
I took those experiences, those hard ones in life, and I learned from them. And that's kind of what made me, when I did go back to school, I eventually wanted to go back to school, to college, for welding program. So I had to go back and finish my high school first. And I think I was like 23 years old when I finished my high school diploma.
Mhm.
And I don't feel bad saying that, because I had a rough life and I did what I could with it, and I did my best. And I still accomplished what I wanted to. It just took me a little bit longer. And when I was a teenager, struggling, I always thought, like, there's nothing else out there, like, I'm never going to be better. I was always putting like negative thoughts in my head. So when I got to a certain point, when probably around in my 20s, and I started to understand myself a little bit more, I realized that everyone's life is different, and I'm just going to live my best life. And
Mhm.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to do exactly what I want to do. So I went and I did exactly that. I finished my high school. I had to do math. I had to learn all that over again. I was out of school for about 7 years, 8 years.
Yeah.
So it was really hard, but it was rewarding in the end. Like, I did it, and I can say I did it, and it got me to where I am today. So if I didn't do it, then I don't know where I would be today.
Yeah, and there's
But
no time limit, right? Like, I mean, it is what it is. we came
exactly.
we
So
came to Canada as immigrants. My mom didn't go back to university till she was like almost 40,
yep,
and she was super embarrassed because she's in school with like 19-year-olds, and man, she
yeah,
toughed it out, got her degree, and then got a super awesome job, and then worked in social work as a director till she retired. And looking back, did it matter? Did it matter if she did it when she was 20 or 40? All that
no,
matters is that it
yep,
got done, right?
exactly. So that's kind of what that's kind of what you have to take into your work as well. Um,
Mhm.
so I just kind of carried that momentum, and I kind of changed my own attitude. So I started thinking more positive. I started telling myself that I was good enough, and I started telling myself that I could do it. Um, there wasn't anybody else really kind of telling me that I could. I had people telling me, like, you're doing a great job, keep going. And I also had people telling me, uh, what are you doing getting into a man's profession? That's a terrible trade. It's terrible for your health. All these people had never welded before, of course. And all of these people obviously wanted me to go and do something different with my life. But those are other people, and that's just kind of moot when it comes to your own life. You can take that with a grain of salt. Like,
Yeah, or a
it's
whole
what
salt lick.
it's what you want to do, when it comes down to it at the end of the day, and it's what you feel accomplished with at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
um, I kind
my
of
mom
realized that after I grew up a little
Yeah,
bit.
it's a saying that I've heard lots growing up, is that you only got to make one person proud, and that's yourself, right?
It's true. And I think until you realize that, you can't change your life.
Hmm.
You're always going to be living for other people unless you realize that for yourself. So.
So let's go back into the story now, because you got back into school, you finished your high school, and you said you wanted to go to college. So where did you go to college, and what program did you sign up for?
So I went to college at St. Lawrence College. It's a local college here. But they didn't have the program in Kingston. So I had to actually move 2 hours, an hour and 45 minutes away, to a place called Cornwall,
Hmm.
Ontario. And there's absolutely nothing to do there. It should be called Cornfield, Ontario, because basically, like, yeah. Um, I got really good grades there because all I did was study. I'd study until 11:30 at night, I think, and then go home, um, and then go back to school and then do the exact same thing the next day. So I was there. Um, I was there to win it, you know.
Hmm.
Like, I was there 100% for myself and 100% to learn. And I think that if you go to college with that attitude and not like, I was older too, so I wasn't in the party mentality, of the college days. I still partied with them, but I was still able to get my 4.0 GPA and my, dean's list and my grants. And like, if you work hard, you can still have fun.
And
There's
you know, and
nothing.
and for the young people getting into school, or not young, or just changing careers,
Yep.
take notes, because first of all, welding school is not a free ride. It's not easy. There's homework. Like
Oh
there's
yeah.
stuff you got to do, and it's not like you think people are like, oh, I'm just going to go into welding school. I'm just going to be burning rod all day. And I taught for 7 years, and I heard a lot of students on first week of school being like, well, why aren't we welding more? It's like, yo, there's a lot you need to know. That's not just burning rods, you know. So
Yeah. And I was fortunate to have, a really old teacher there. I think he was like almost 70. He should have retired already, but he was real old school and he taught us so hard. And I got good grades in that class. And I was like real proud of myself because everyone else was flunking. And they're like, this guy teaches too hard, you know, he doesn't tell us what's going to be on the test. And it's like, well, nobody's going to tell you what's going to be, you know, in life. So you kind of got to be ready for everything. And that's kind of what he was trying to teach us. But I liked all the professors there because they were very, very informative. I learned from every single one of them something different, right? Like the TIG professor, the stick professor. We had an AutoCAD teacher. Um, I believe we had our in classes. Which everyone would moan and groan about. But I really liked that because that's why I went to school for, you know. I went to school to learn why it's doing this. And I wanted to know everything about metallurgy that I could. That actually helped. Metallurgy actually helped me with my automotive side. I know I'm getting off track here,
no,
but
that's
I
all
just
good.
wanted I just wanted to say this because metallurgy actually helps with everything because
Oh
it
yeah.
helps you understand like, it helps you understand motive components. It helps you understand like, static and, um,
Dynamic.
yeah, like all these vibrations. Like,
Hmm.
so when I got into automotive, welding, it helped me understand like, well, you might want to like make that out of the different materials so that it has more, um, ductility, or you know what I mean. You might want to make that out of something else so that it sounds different. So
Hmm.
I wanted to learn everything that I could about metals, and, you're not going to learn that just by welding out on your own, on a job where you're just welding one thing, you know, all the time. So
Yeah.
that's where school really helped me. You know, I'm glad I went and learned all that. It helped me become a better welder,
a hundred
and
percent.
yeah.
And you know, when I was teaching, and I still do some teaching, I find that most of the students hate the metallurgy classes because they find them boring, or whatever, right? But after they're graduated, the most of the questions I get afterwards is about metallurgy, because
Yeah,
that's how you
yeah.
solve problems. That's how you solve problems, is with metallurgy.
Yep, yep, exactly. And yeah, I know a lot of the kids just couldn't wrap their brains around it. And I actually liked it because I could kind of think about it, and still
Visualize
to this day,
it. Yeah.
yeah, still to this day I do. When I'm welding stuff, I can visualize how it's going to weld before I actually weld it. And I'll know what settings to turn down and what settings to change just based on what I need to weld. Thinking about it in my head. It's kind of like one of those virtual welders, but
I
you
totally
get it,
get it.
but you
Yeah.
get it in your head when you go to school, and you learn. So you don't
So,
have to spend all that money. Yeah.
so the program that you were in, was it an
Uh,
apprenticeship program? Like you were done in a year, or did you have to go back, or how did it lay out? Like how did it work from there?
no. So it was a 2 year. What did they call it? It's a CWB Welding and Fabrication Diploma Apprenticeship Program. So at the end of the 2 years, you do graduate with a diploma, but so all of the professors were really pushing for kids to get a job while they were in their first year. And I went out, I think within the first 3 weeks, because I knew one of the professors was like, I know where place is hiring. I know you needed some money for your rent, like, because I was older and I was living on my own. He goes, go over here and apply, and you can get a job for after school or whatever. And it'll also go towards your apprenticeship because they're CWB certified. So I went out within the first 3 weeks and got that apprenticeship. And I swear kids were, oh, why did you get a job so quick? Blah, blah, blah. And I've had jobs since I was 14 years old. So it's kind of like odd for me not to be working. So when I was in school, I was like, no, I wanted to continue working. So I went and got the job. It was called Northern Lights, and it's a great place. They made exercise equipment. So I got jacked while making exercise equipment.
I need to
Which
get a
was
job like
awesome.
that.
Yeah. I think they actually sent the exercise equipment out west towards you guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Alberta, British Columbia, somewhere out there. So anyways, I got that. And within 3 months, all of the kids in the school were just, they were like asking everyone for jobs. You know what I mean? They were handing out resumes to everywhere because this is a real small town compared to where I'm from. And there were only a couple places that were going to be hiring apprentices. So I was lucky that I got in, and I stayed there for the 2 years that I was in school. And I worked whenever I could. So I'd work after school if it wasn't a really long day. I think for the first little bit, I worked like Wednesday nights, Friday nights, and then Saturday and Sunday, I worked 12-hour days. So I got 24 hours on the weekends. So that was good. But yeah, I got a lot of my hours through school. And then I was completely done by, I think, 6 months after I was done school, I could move home. And I was completely done my apprenticeship. I didn't do my red seal. I didn't bother writing my red seal because I knew I would never be moving out to Alberta. I wasn't interested in being a pipeliner. I like working in the shop and TIG welding and production and that kind of thing. So I'm not a big man. So going outside and being on the pipeline to me is just like, oh God, no.
And that's such an interesting take because,
But
the Red
it's
Seal
different
program
for
is,
everyone.
yeah, it's different in every province too. Because I hear lots of people in Ontario say like, well, I don't care about the Red Seal because I'm not looking for X type of job. But out here in the West, that's not how we look at it at all. Like Alberta and the Red Seal, that really is like their own thing. In Saskatchewan, you work in manufacturing, you could have a Red Seal or not. It's basically just more money. So people here get their Red Seal to make more cash, and they're in manufacturing, they're in whatever.
I hate to say it, but it's if you're not making money from the tickets or the Red Seal, like actually making money, then it's not really worth it to have it. In Ontario, it's a mandatory trade still. I'm pretty sure it's it's a voluntary
It's
trade.
voluntary in Ontario. Yeah. Same as
So what
Saskatchewan.
it means is that anyone could go out and say they're a welder.
As long as they're actually welding.
Technically. But as a woman, even I didn't think that was right. Like just knowing that, like, as a woman, it was going to be hard for me to find a job welding. So I knew that I wanted those credentials to kind of like back me and be like, no, I did learn just as much as that guy there, if not more. So that's how women have to kind of fight for that equality and that equal pay. Is that I've heard of a lot of guys just being able to go out and get a job, welding, go out and get a job in the union without even having any background experience, and they'll just teach them. But that's the thing is, I'll never hear of a woman being able to do that.
Yeah. There's a lot of barriers there.
So as a woman, you definitely have to work harder to get where you want to get. But at the end of the day, it's rewarding. So I don't find that it's any different. You know what I mean? Like, well, I wouldn't know because I'm a woman. So.
All right. Well, this is a great time to take a break. We're at about the halfway point here. So we'll take a break and listen to some messages from our sponsors for the show. So thank you for tuning in to the CWB Association podcast here with me and Melissa. So we'll be right back. And we're back here on the CWB Association podcast. My name is Max Ceron. Thanks for tuning in. And, we have a fantastic guest here. We got Melissa Phelan, because I don't want to be failing at saying her name wrong. So, we're talking about what's happening, in terms of her coming up and having to, have to work harder, the different situations that happen, the different, instances that occur in a female person coming up in the welding industry, and we were talking right before the show, being a female is a huge barrier. And then there's being a female and being a person of color, or imagine being transgender right now, or lesbian, or two-spirited, whatever. You can be any type of classification or demographic, but if you're not a white male, it's going to be tougher, right?
That's correct. Yeah, definitely. We're all still fighting for that equality, and especially in the welding trade. But yeah, I just find that going to school really helped me. Doing my apprenticeship while I was in school really helped me. Not waiting till after, or basically, yeah, you just need to learn every day. And if I feel like I'm not learning something every day, then I have to force myself to learn something, because you're the only person who's going to make your life any better.
All right. So you finished your apprenticeship, you got out into the welding world. What were your first gigs like? What kind of jobs were the first ones that you had that when you started your career?
So before I went to welding school, I was actually an automotive auto body apprentice. And that was super interesting, except I didn't really like how unhealthy the environment was. So like there's lots of Bondo and chemicals, and it's actually I think that job is worse for you than welding, but
I agree.
So I got out of that, but I'm still like a gearhead at heart. So I really want to get back into the automotive thing, and that's what I'm doing with myself right now. But my first jobs, I worked at, can't say some of the company's names, but I worked for a place that built pressure vessels, stainless steel pressure vessels, and dairy piping for a dairy production out your way. And then I worked for a place that I didn't stay in one spot too long. So I'd always work for maybe a year and a bit and then leave, because I felt like, so with welding, what I wanted to accomplish is I wanted to learn as much as possible with as many processes as I possibly could. And I wanted to do that on my own, and I wanted to learn it all And I knew that I couldn't do everything. Like, I'm not going to get into pipeline, you know, I'm not going to get into submerged arc. There's some things that I'm just not ever going to probably get into. Or maybe I think I won't. And then 10 years from now, I'll be doing submerged arc welding. But I built boats, fire boats, aluminum fire boats. They were about half inch thick aluminum. We MIG welded those. And we back gouged them with like a skill saw, like circular saw, sorry.
Yeah.
You just like hold it chest height, go along the whole like 40-foot boat, basically back gouge like a whole seam, and then go in and fill it. Long days of MIG welding, aluminum on those boats. And then I moved to, where did I move to? Well, I moved out to Brampton and I worked out there because I got a job at a place called, my memory is really bad. I wrote everything down. Give me a second here.
Going through your Rolodex.
I worked at a place called Magna International. And what they did was they made automotive parts for GM, Ford, and all those big companies, Honda, like a couple
Magna's
other
a very
ones.
famous company. Yeah.
Yeah, and I worked for them, and I also worked for Northern Lights, or sorry, not Northern Lights. I'm getting confused now. Atlas Fluid Systems. Atlas Fluid Systems. They do high production of engine component parts. So they'll do like aluminum weld. They had a big, you know, robotic warehouse doing robots, welding. They were doing like vacuum brazing machines. They had, you know, packaging robots, that sort of thing. So I was doing programming and technician with them for about 2 years. And I liked that. And then I worked with Fronius and ABB, because Fronius was the weld cell that the robotics use mostly. And Fronius is a really big company in Canada and the USA, I believe.
Yep. And you know,
ABB Robotics
it's
is
interesting.
awesome too.
Yeah, because Fronius has got a huge footprint out east, but out west they're just starting to crack it out here. Like we don't have a lot of Fronius machines out in the west, but that's changing now, and that's good. But you know, I'm gonna cut in here because you said something that was really interesting, and that's that you're a gearhead, and I'm like a car nut. Like I've had over 35 vehicles, I think, at this point in my life, and I always have a project going or a car on the go, and I got one in my garage right now that's not going to be coming out till spring. But what are you working on right now? What's your project right now? You got anything cool happening?
Oh yeah, I always got something cool happening. So I bought a 1982 El Camino and completely stripped it, rebuilt. Well, I bought a floor pan, I bought a frame, bought basically redid the whole car. You can see it on my Instagram there. I got a couple pictures up. Welded in the whole firewall, welded in the entire floor pan, welded in the smuggler's box. So the entire, I built the car from like the ground to like maybe 1.5 foot up, all the way around the car. I don't know. I think they call that something. But anyways,
ground up restoration.
Yeah, pretty much. Rebuild like the whole thing basically. It was a lot more than I thought it was going to be, because it's a different car than the Honda. The Honda is a unibody, so it doesn't have that frame under there. So when I bought the El Camino, I was on a whole different level. Like, it just took me up a notch. And I'm like, whoa, what the hell? You know what I mean? So anyways, that was
What kind of
though.
motor? What kind of motor got it?
Right now it's just got a 305.
I want to
put a big block or LS or something in there that's, you know.
Well, you got lots of room in there. You can put in whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, exactly. So I've just been basically rebuilding the body so that I can put everything in this spring. I got basically all my stuff to put on it, you know,
Are
brake
you going with
lines.
original interior or like reupholstered, or are you putting in like a newer style interior or a different vehicle's interior? Because lots of those 80s vehicles will switch. Like for example, the Monte Carlo seats that were in the SS's, the
Yep,
buckets,
yep,
they fit in the El Camino like right on the rails, no questions asked, right?
yeah. So I've been looking into like seats, obviously.
Mm.
I'll probably just do my own dash. I'll probably just flock it. But what I want
Mm-hmm.
to do is I want to put a couple gauges, like fiberglass in a couple gauge
Yep. Odds. Yep.
mount holes there, and then I don't know, kind of make it my own.
Cool.
Not really sure where I want to take it yet, but I definitely know what color I'm gonna paint it.
Oh, what color? Purple?
No, green.
Green. Oh, you're gonna go
Yeah.
with the Everlast green? Is it gonna be the Everlast El Camino?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe you get them to sponsor the paint
Yeah,
job.
yeah. Just throw like 10 friggin' Everlast welders in the back, and just good to go. That'd be awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And that's the beauty of the trade, is that it really opens up the doors to a lot of different things, right?
yeah, yeah.
And so
Um,
right there, you also brought up another thing, is your Instagram. So you're pretty active on Instagram. I've been looking at it,
yep.
and I think a lot of the community in the welding world, people that listen to this podcast, by the way, we just went over 4,000 downloads. So thank you to the listeners. Um, we all use social media as part of our network, and I think a lot of people that talk about the network being dead, that's not true. It's just changed, right? And man, like I got your social media right in front of me here. You like your slaps.
Yeah, yeah.
You got
So back in
so
the
many
day,
stickers. Yeah.
so I don't know how old you are, but back in the day, we used to skateboard,
Mhm.
and like I wasn't good, mind you, and I would never try and get on it now because I'm old. But we called them slaps, and we just slap everything, you know, with stickers. I guess it's like a sticker, but like more extreme, you know. I don't fucking, I don't know. Um, I can't really remember, but I've just always called them that.
Mhm.
So anyways, I have my own Missy Weld slaps. Uh, Gonna get some more on there soon. You can purchase them, or you could just trade me your slaps for my slaps. That's usually what I do, and why I get so many.
Mhm.
Um, and I need to buy a massive toolbox so that I can put them all on there. So,
Yeah,
but it's
I've been welding for
basically
almost 30 years. I got so many slaps, my toolbox, my helmets. The other day I took a picture in my garage. I think I put it on Instagram. I had like I found, cleaning up my garage, 6 welding helmets
oh my
that I don't even
goodness.
use. And I was like, "Oh man, I got a problem."
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely getting like I gotta stop buying hammers. I don't know what it is, but like I've been buying hammers lately, and I
But a
don't
good
know.
hammer feels so good though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you get the right weight. I like a nice 16 to 24 ounce with the long handle on it. Then you can really let her fly, you know?
Yeah, I'm small, so I need like my own tools, like because I need different balance than most people. No, but it's just all fun, you know. Like I love it. Um, I love buying tools. I love buying my welders. I bought like no, I've only bought one welder from them, Everlast, but I'm going to buy 2 more. Um, Definitely outfitting the shop with Everlast, that's for sure.
Are you sponsored officially by Everlast? I think I saw something about that.
Yeah, so I'm an Everlast Weld ambassador.
Okay.
And what that entails is I've purchased an Everlast welder and I friggin' love it. I usually try out their welders and then send them back. Give them a lot of, because I'm a weld technician. They want my technical feedback. They
Mhm.
don't want feedback that everyone else is getting them. So I basically put it through its paces,
Mhm.
if you will. And I tell them exactly what's wrong with it, and I tell them where they need to improve, and um, what customers are going to be most likely concerned about, or you know, PO'd about, if they, shipping, like a whole bunch of stuff.
Packaging, how the buttons are laid
Exactly.
out, the colors, the guards, everything, right?
Exactly. So they want to know basically technical information, like does the torch get hot at 60 amps after a couple minutes? It's pretty down to the bone. And I have like a lot of information on the welders, and that's just the only way that a company is ever going to get better, is if they do research and development, and they actually ask welders who are using their product what's wrong with it and what they like about it and what they don't, right?
Yeah, and they're getting a lot of traction. Like 10 years ago, I remember looking at Everlast when they first they were set up in California at that time, and I remember they first started kind of hitting the market with their boards, because they got famous for their IGBT boards, or interpolated gated transistor boards, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how they hit the market. And now that technology is all over the place, right? Like I bought one, a different company's version of it, just to try it out, because it was like super cheap,
Yeah.
and I've been happy with it. And I was,
Yeah.
I'm about to buy an Everlast. I'm about to pull the pin on one myself, and then,
Well,
but
if
like,
you
I mean, I
do,
want. Yeah, and I'm probably going to. I already got 3 welders in my shop, but there's always room for more. And
yeah.
I was looking at the CanWeld welders out there now too, like another Canadian company that's
Yep.
coming up big now. And this is awesome. It's good to have options, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's the thing, is like, I love Fronius, and I would love to have Fronius, for everything.
Hmm.
But everyone who's starting out, or everyone who's just a hobbyist welder, isn't gonna spend
That kind of money.
$5,000 on a
Hmm.
basic TIG welder or a basic MIG welder, just to have that. Like, they're not gonna understand. So
It's like getting your license and buying a Ferrari. It's like not the smartest thing.
yeah, they're not going to understand the difference between the two. Um, I understand the difference between the two. I know that the power, basically, Fronius has a way, and I don't know how they do it, but they have a way of making smooth electricity, and it is smooth all the time. And
Hmm.
I've never, I don't know, there's no other way that I can describe it, especially as a welder. And I don't really want to step on anyone's foot and be like, you know what I mean? It's just a smooth technology. And
Yeah.
that's what you're paying for. And that's why a lot of those companies that are doing high production in automotive are paying for the Fronius welders to go with their multi-million-dollar robots, is because they need that smooth technology,
Hmm.
that smooth electricity. Uh, and they're from the UK, so of course they do it better with the electricity.
Well, and
um,
everyone's kind of got their shtick, right?
yeah,
Like you look at Hobart, and Hobart's always been like, if you want to buy a machine for gouging, like if you're doing a lot of gouging and you're going to be running 300-400 amps all day,
yeah,
you get
yeah,
a Hobart, because those
yeah,
machines will never blow up. And
yeah,
now, and so like, and you want to have a machine with lots of options, like lots of buttons, lots of toys. Get a Lincoln, and the Lincoln's got 400 ways to change the wave and the
yeah,
frequency and so, like,
yeah.
it's really, what do you prefer? What are you doing? What are you trying to get out of it, right?
Yeah. So with Everlast and like Forney and HTP and like all of these, like I think there's even one Prime Weld. A guy, an actual welder came up with that one, Prime Weld,
Hmm.
Prime Welder or whatever. Like all of these welders, they're good because the average Joe can buy them. The thing I like about Everlast the most is that the customer service is there. So like if you need anything, they're there, and they'll send it to you. So I don't know. It's just the customer service is great, and that's why I chose them for my welders.
All right. So let's switch gears here, because I want to get on
Yeah,
the topic here, because we nerded out a bit there about machines,
I
and I'm
know,
sure
I
some
know.
people are gonna appreciate that, but maybe some won't. But
Yeah,
um,
teach their own. They can
yeah,
just tune
yeah.
out if they don't like it.
Uh, when we were talking prior to the show, we were discussing, like one of the things that I've been struggling with, and especially as I've kind of moved up in my career, is this concept of how do we get more women and people of color and stuff like that into the welding industry, and not just into the welding industry to start, but to stay, to stay and move up. Like for myself, I'll tell you from my personal experience, I've worked as a welder for 27 years. I've worked with a lot of women welders. I mean, it's still a vast minority, but I've worked with a lot of women welders on the floor as colleagues welding, but I have yet ever to have a woman foreman. I have yet ever to have a woman CEO of a welding shop. And I these things don't haven't existed in my world. And I don't get why. So
Well, I was a weld supervisor
mhm.
for I think it was a year and a half. I took that job. I loved it, and the guys seemed to love it too. They had we I never really got in like a bad situation. I'm pretty good with dealing with all personality types, just based on my life and what I've
Mhm.
had to deal with in life. Um, being a supervisor was completely different because the only thing I didn't like about it was I was in the office too much. And I was
Tell me
like,
about it.
I'm losing my skills. I got to get out there and practice. Like I can't do this today. um, but I don't know. I loved being a weld supervisor. It was great.
So what are some of the
Except
barriers that you can identify for like somebody listening? You got some, 18-year old girl listening to the podcast right now thinking like, man, welding looks cool. Missy's life looks like, I want to follow these footsteps. What are some of the things that they're going to encounter that you can prepare people for or coach them through? Like what, give us some examples.
so I would say the biggest barrier for me was trying to earn my respect. So I realized instead of trying to earn respect from people, I would just do my work and let my work speak for itself. So um, instead of trying to, you know, pretend like I was somebody I wasn't, or, pretend like I was good or better than somebody else, I I put myself back and I realized, I'm at the bottom right now. You have to learn from everyone. So if somebody wanted to teach me something, I was willing to learn it. I'd constantly ask questions. And you can't be afraid to ask questions because I know a lot of women are afraid to speak up and be like, hey, can you help me out? I don't know what I'm doing. But the number one thing, and all men will agree with it, is you have to be safe. Because I've seen men hurt themselves.
Oh yeah.
I've seen women hurt themselves. Um, and nobody wants to get hurt, regardless of your gender. So if you're not doing something that you think you know enough about, then you need to ask for help. And like I know a lot of people, and like that's a huge barrier for women, is they don't have someone to ask. So that's the reason that social media is so great. People need to use it for positivity. So that's what we've been doing. We have a Welding Women's Syndicate group. You can go and you can ask us for help. Anyone, and I think there's like over 200 women in that group. And a lot of people don't know. There might be some women who don't know about it, and there might be, 100 women who do know about it. So you'll get answers from women. So basically it's a safe place for women to go and learn and ask for help. If they're in a work environment where they don't feel safe, that they can go ask a man, or a coworker, which is unfortunate because it shouldn't be like that. I've never felt like that, but it might just be my personality. um, I kind of I've always felt like, well, they're going to think however they're going to think about me, regardless of what questions I ask. So if they're going to help me out, then go to that person so that they can help you out. Then you'll learn the people who will help you and the ones who won't, sort of thing, when you're first starting out.
Yeah,
And
and
once you get it, then you don't need help.
then
They
yeah,
might come to you and ask for help. Actually, I know they will. They will come to you all the time and they'll be like, "Can you do this, Missy? Can you do this?" And you're like, "Of course I can." So yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Just where you are and where you are going to be is completely different. So you have to just think like that. Nothing lasts forever.
What was the name of that Instagram group again? Just so people can make sure they get it.
It's Welding Women's Syndicate.
Okay, Welding Women's Syndicate. Is there any other cool women's groups on social media that maybe you could promote?
Oh yeah, there's tons of them. But like once you get into one, you'll kind of get connected to all of the other ones.
Okay, cool.
And that's kind of why social media is great and it's positive, in the fact that everyone's supporting everyone, because it's positive. There's no negativity, and if there is negativity, it just gets snuffed right out immediately. And that's the difference between Facebook and Instagram. And the weld community on Instagram is super helpful, for anybody who needs help. Just go on Instagram, go to the Welding Women's Syndicate, go to I would say the Everlast page. Even there's lots of like good information on there, and you can find people through the different posts. You know what I mean? Like, say you go to the Everlast page and then you see something that you need to work on that's similar, that you can click on that, and then you can be like, oh, that's the guy who did that, so maybe I'll contact him and see how he did that. And a lot of people will respond back and a lot of people won't. It's just
And I gotta throw in the
positive way.
I gotta throw the shameless plug in here for also go to the CWB Association Instagram, because those come to me. Those come to me, and I get probably 15 to 20 questions a day from Instagram, and I answer them all. I totally help people.
I think a while back I saw you were putting questions.
Mhm.
Was that you? Were you putting questions on, and it was like a multiple choice sort of thing?
Yeah, I was like, what do you think about this? Blank, blank, blank. And then we also had one where it was like people that ask questions, we put them back out.
Yeah, it was like welding. It was like a welding question, and then you'd have like A, B, C, D. It was kind of like how you do the red seal test, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Those are like fun and informational. Like, and a lot of people think that they know, and then they're like, "Oh shit, I never even knew that. I've been doing that the wrong way for 15 years."
That happens a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you just got to keep learning and seek out the good people, to help you, and stay knowledgeable.
Okay, and now at this point in your life, like right now, what's your vision? Where are you going? What are you working on? What's the big project in Missy's life?
Oh, so right now I'm laid off. And I am deciding what I want to do next. I'm either going to keep working and work for myself, or I'm going to probably move back to Toronto.
Yeah.
I applied to the union, the local union. I applied to Ottawa and Toronto. Hopefully, I get Toronto. I like Ottawa. It's just that my sister's there. Love you, Marsha. Anyways, yeah. And there's lots of French people, and I don't speak French, so I stay away from that way. Yeah, Toronto. Hopefully, I get a call back from the union. I'd love to do that. It's just a test and then get in. I hear that it's really hard unless you know someone, so we'll just see how it goes. I just take it one day at a time, basically, and have fun and learn.
Well, a couple podcasts ago, we had someone that was very involved with the union on the show. So you might have to reach out to them and say, hey, I was
Yeah,
also on the podcast. Do you think you can help me out?
yeah,
Sponsor
exactly.
me, because you always need a sponsor to get in. If you get a sponsor, you get in right away, right?
Yeah, and that's the other thing is people like you helping us out and getting the names out, getting our names out there, and letting people know there are women who do this. There are weld supervisors, yeah.
It's good. And for the people listening to the show, I'm always asking for guests and people to bring on, and which is how I meet most of the people that you get on the show through social media. People send me messages, "Hey, check out this Instagram," and hey, I follow it up and I go, "Hey, could you want to be on the podcast?" And most of the people say yes. Very few say no. But there is some homework I want to give to the listeners out there. I'm looking for people of color because that's something that I haven't been representing very well on the show. And I actually had someone on Instagram send me a message being like, "You're doing a killer job with the women," because almost half my guests straight, like I'm 50-50 men and women right now, but they're like,
That's
you
great.
have you haven't had any indigenous or people of color. And I was like, damn, you're right, because I'm a person of color. Like, shouldn't I be more on the ball with that? So if you guys know of any people of color, from they don't even have to be in Canada, they can be anywhere in the world, that would be interested in being on the podcast, I would love to hear that, especially indigenous stories. I would love to hear some really cool indigenous stories from here in Canada.
Yeah, so the Welding Women's Syndicate page, actually, we do have quite a quite a bit of color. Like we have people from all over the world, and that's the greatest thing about it is it's it's a place where everyone can go,
And be safe.
regardless.
Yeah.
Yeah, regardless, as long as you're a woman. um, you can go there and you can ask for help and we'll help you. There's tons of great women on there and they all do different things. Like there's tons of automotive technicians on there, like Bogey's Garage, Bogey from Bogey's Garage, all girls
Hmm.
garage there. She's great. Like all the stuff she does. I actually watched a couple of her videos because I suck at doing sheet metal fabrication. I don't have like
Hey.
the plenisher or
Hmm.
I don't have any of that sandbags like wood. uh, so I start buying these hammers, right? And that's where I got
Hmm.
my hammer thing. So anyways, getting off topic there again.
As soon as we
um
start talking about buying hammers, you're just
yeah,
dreaming about all these cool hammers out there.
but anyways, we have a couple women on there, and honestly, like I was telling you before, there's a Latinas Weld group, um, where they're encouraging Latina women uh,
Hmm.
to get into welding, and it's an actual school where they can go and they can learn how to weld in a safe environment where there's just women,
That's awesome.
and I think that's wonderful because school was great. Honestly, school was great, but I went too late and I was like the mom of the group, and they always thought like I was gonna do it for them. They're like, ah, yeah, yeah, and mostly they'd be like, hey, Missy, my tank's empty. They're like, oh, I'm gonna go out there -30 in the snowstorm to get your freaking tank for you. So I'd be like hauling tanks back in the freaking middle of the wintertime, eh? I was like, friggin' school.
All right. Well, it is the perfect time to wrap it up, Missy. I've asked every person at every show, and I'm going to ask you too. There's no escaping it. What would be one piece of advice you'd give to a young person coming into the trades today? What would be the one thing you'd say to really pay attention to if they want to succeed?
Um, I would say be humble, never give up, and get your name out there. Um, just by getting on these kind of shows, and you know, if you want to help out youth and advocate for more youth to get into the trades, then that's always something that we could use help with. So
Yeah, we need that. We need a lot more people coming in, like for the younger people listening to the show or the older parents that got young kids coming up. The trades, we it's I can't even tell you the studies I've been reading about how many young people we're going to need in the next 10 to 20 years, and these are high paying good jobs with benefits and pensions. Like, it doesn't get much better, especially with the world the way it's going today. Let me tell you, a lot of the industry, a lot of Canadians lost a lot of jobs, but welders, we did all right. We did all
Yep.
right.
Yep.
So it's a good trade. It's solid.
Well, that's the thing. You could go wherever you want,
Hmm.
Like there's tons of jobs, like especially if you're Canadian. You're not just limited to Canada. You have those skills. You can go somewhere else. You can do those tests that they need you to do. You're still going to have that knowledge. So you just need to be confident that you can, go to school, get the credentials so that you have them, and then be confident that you can do the job,
Yeah, you bet.
because because you can. That's why you're
Hmm.
a welder.
And Canadian welders are the best welders in the world, and I'll say that to anybody.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate it. If you guys want to find her on Instagram, it's at Missy Welds. You guys can find her there. And also, please make sure you stay tuned to our next upcoming episodes, and download them and share them. We're on Buzzsprout, we're on Stitcher, we're on the Google Podcast and Apple Podcast. So make sure you catch us. And we're also on Instagram. So the CWB Association group and myself, Ask Max 75, if you guys ever have any questions. So I appreciate Missy you being here. Thank you very much.
For sure.
You've been listening to the CWB Association Welding Podcast with Max Ceron. If you enjoyed what you heard today, rate our podcast and visit us at cwbassociation.org to learn more. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions or suggestions on what you'd like to learn about in the future. Produced by the CWB Group and presented by Max Ceron. This podcast serves to educate and connect the welding community. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening.